Okay, here's another interesting new archaeological site that's been worked on. Well, it's been found back in 2008, but they were working on it extensively through 2017 up until now. It's up on this mountain that's about 200 miles east of Gobekli Tepe. And we talked recently about how the people at Karahan Tepe have said and stated outright that they are finding that it is older than Gobekli Tepe's time sign. And that makes us suspicious, kind of, few of us here, because whenever they say that, it's like they must have found something and carbon dated it, and now they're waiting to go back to get a validation on it. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't mouth off like that. But here's another site that's been dated too at 10,000 years of history to be uncovered in Mardin. It's a site known as Bukulu Tara, and it means beaded fields. And they call it that because the people found millions of beads here. Well, tens of thousands of beads here. And when they started doing the excavation, they found so much more. This is at the beginning of the excavation that you see right here. But it makes one wonder, whenever you see this hill here, what's on that hill right there? And I don't know if it shows up here, but you can see this banding that almost looks like terracing. I think it would be too small. There are trees put up on there, and if you compare this tree to those sizes over there and where they're at, I'm guessing that they would have 10, 15-foot ledges all the way up this. There aren't any through here, but there's some on this edge over here too. Kind of strange. And it looks like you could walk on this hill ridge right up here and go right up onto that hill ridge there. Also, conspicuously, you can see some more of that terracing over here. Then there's a huge hill that's here associated with the site, and one in the distance too, and one in the distance up here. And it makes you wonder if anybody's taken a real good look at those sites either. But one thing that showed up, and I don't know what this is I'm looking at, for it looks like a step pyramid here. It's either cut into the rock and it's a shallow showing shades, or it's a darker stone type thing. And looking at its terracing, it's quite reminiscent of some of the Mexico type temples and things like that, or a pre-ziggurat type, maybe melted down somehow or something. But I wonder if people are even looking at that, or if I'm even seeing that correctly. Is this just a shadowed area? It must be. I don't see it in any other photographs. But let's get on to this site here. This is whenever they first started digging it up. And the Mardin Museum has initiated archaeological excavations at a site known as Boncuklu Tarla, which means beaded field, the earliest known human settlement in Mardin. In fact, it's showing to be about the earliest ever. One thing that's real different and unique about this site is that it's not a temple. Although they have a couple of places on here that they say were probably the temple type part, or where that person lived. But these are actual settlements. These are squared off homes with walls and everything else. Looks like the walls that were built in Gobekli Tepe, and you'll see a lot more of these in pictures coming up. But this is dwellings. And that terracing could indicate some farming, but that would be somewhat unique to it. But of course, this whole area here wasn't looking like it does now just a few thousand years ago, much less around the time of the Younger Dryas Age. This would have been very fertile, and a lot of trees and so on through here, and brushlands, and clear and open fields, much like a Eden type area that the Sumerians used. They even mentioned the Sumerians in something else, but it's in other language whenever we get to that one. There's a few articles on it, and I just want to try to go through it. Archaeological excavations conducted by this museum director Nihat Edrogan and his team in the Boncuklu Tarla settlement of Islu neighborhood of Mardin's Dargisit district have uncovered cultures, social lives, and burial traditions of the people that lived in northern Mesopotamia 10,000 years ago. I believe the dating on it's 11,006. And they're trying to say it's almost or about 1,000 years older than Gobekli Tepe. According to Edwardian excavations at Boncuklu Tarla unearthed houses dating back to the Aceramic Neolithic period from 10,000 BC to 7. The foundations are which are covered with rubble stone walls with foundations hardened by clay, like an early plaster type form. There are burials associated with this too, and we'll get to that in a minute. They call this the Aceramic Neolithic. The other term for that is pre-pottery Neolithic. Edrigan said that the period had started with the establishment of the first sedentary society as well as food production, and the history of humanity is called the Neolithic Age. The first phase did not have baked clay vessels, and baskets or wooden or stone vessels were used instead of baked clay, although the food production was known in the beginning of the era. So they already have farming. This is the Aceramic Neolithic phase, though. Artifacts from this phase, which have been found only in a few places in Anatolia, give examples of structures built according to certain plans, with stone or bone tools or weapons or ornamental items in the first residential villages. There's an amulet that they show a picture of that's 10,000 years old and dated, but he noted that there's triangle shapes of the pendants found in the field show that the shape of the amulet has not changed for 10,000 years, adding in the Boncuklu Tarla Neolithic settlement because of the belief in rebirth. The dead were buried underneath the floors in houses, much like the Canaanite burials we talked about, and they're buried with red ochre and facing to the left. We'll look at those here in a minute. For thousands of years, starting from this period, people have used jewelry to satisfy their need for ornaments, for the sake of their beliefs, for abundance, magic as totems, amulets for luck. Natural materials such as colored stones, animal teeth, horns, bones, claws, and seashells were shaped by rubbing and scratching and turned into jewelry with piercing and beading. And there are little holes run through every one of these beads. And so there's a drill involved in this situation that they're not trying to talk about. So this Tarla people, which are speculated to have believed to have produced power against evil and diseases, may have used for good luck also, show that the form of these purpose of the amulets are still used today and have not changed for 10,000 years. And this pendant looks like a pyramid. Stressing that they continue to find historic artifacts in Boncuklu Tarla, Edrigan said, in addition to beads that were produced for thousands of years of jewelry in the on the settlement, there are also large numbers of obsidian and flint stone blades, production of residue made up from cores and shafts, so that the ground stone tools were produced in the settlement. These include arrowheads, sharp objects, boring tools, microlights, the Neolithic age in which people started farming, domesticating animals, and building stable villages where socioeconomic structures were formed, the foundation of today's civilization. Well, we're saying that now, but let me tell you, just a few years back, we were saying that about Catalhoyuk and lost a few thousand years with the time of it going on. And 10 or 15 years before that, we didn't have that going on, really, and then all of a sudden, hey, whenever I was being brought up, they were thought they were new hotness because Sumerians had come up with it. And I was telling you that this whole time that it goes back much, much older. In fact, it goes back older than this right here. Is this the very first one? No, this is the oldest known. It's a different term. It somewhat means the same thing, but it doesn't mean it is. It means, well, it's the oldest known. So now let's go on and go to this next one here. Tarla, the site older than the famous Gobekli Tepe. In the table of contents here, they talk about it being called beaded field, and with a history of 12,000 years, it's got the name beaded field because 20,000 beads were found on skeletons there, decorated up. All the Caucasian burials that we talked about going back in thru into Cro-Magnon times with certain shells and beads and so on, but this is a little different and more refined. They had a belief of resurrection. It's a site older than Gobekli Tepe. So here's a picture of it overhead where they've used a drone to go over it, and you can tell they're just starting to get into this now, and I swear if you just look here you can tell there's stuff up under that too. So it's spreading out quite a bit, and you can see that from this excavation versus what we were looking at earlier, this is a different spot too. So sadly I don't think in this whole grouping of pictures that we have do we have actually the whole overview of site at the end, but each portion that they're working on individually. So during the excavations carried out in Turkish city of Mardin, located in the southeast Anatolia region, important information and data were obtained regarding burial rituals of the deceased, as well as life in the ceramic-free Neolithic period, which reflects the period of over 10,000 years before Christ. And you look at these beaded necklaces here, different sizes, where you could wear multiple sizes and so on. A lot of time there are separated beads and a lot of different colors, different types of stone used. And here's one of those pyramid forms they talk about right over here. There it is. But a lot of the other ones are using the different forms of beads too. And these were all in burials. There's carnelian right there. Striped ones like this. Little beads that come up in a teardrop shape. Pretty neat. So it got its name from the beads found in more than 50,000 excavations, they're saying. Most of the jewelry usually found in the form of bracelets and necklaces were found as grave gifts in the grave goods that they found. The workmanship in jewelry is quite eye-catching compared to anything else in the period. 20,000 beads were found on these skeletons. Thousands of beads in belts and buckles. What? Yep, it gets deeper. Inlaid ornaments. What? They're already doing inlaying. Out of serpentine, limestone, chloride even, sandstone, bone, obsidian, phosphate, copper, malachite, and different tea stones, which depict the traditions of the communities living in the Neolithic period, but each one had a symbology too. We've talked about that years ago. Here's one of the burials of the major males, and he's laid out like in a sleeping pose, and the females and the rest of the burials that are associated with it that they show so far out of it seem to be buried on their left-hand side, facing the east, covered in red ochre. In fact, you can see all the red ochre and cinnabar that's all over this skeleton here, in red ochre over into its head. By the way, maybe it's just something, but it looks to me like its head's been chopped off at the very top of it, like its skull is open. They also said that they would take their patella and put it in their stomach, and that's a sign of rebirth. So that must have gone along with it. And inside there, this is not T-pillars again, like Gobekli Tepe and so on, but they do have this place they know of as a temple, or you're looking at here, and there are worked stone, squares, and stelae that kind of look like tombstones or whatever, that are in there and laid out on the 4 cardinal points. And I don't know about the layout of this place yet, as far where it goes, but it appears that it works along this line. So they think that it's older than Gobekli Tepe, and here's a look over Gobekli Tepe. We know about it and its excavation area that's there, and they haven't gotten all of it, but they haven't gotten all of this field either. They've been working on it slowly, and then as they do, somebody just walks over 45 yards and digs around and goes, there's a wall, and they just continue. and continue and continue. So let's go to the next one here. And in that, we'll see that the site, there's all the pictures popping up and it's rolling while I'm doing it. Sorry, guys. So this is written in the local languages there, and I'm not even going to try. They tell you that it's over 10,000 years ago. In fact, in a minute they tell you 10,006 or 11,006. So here they are excavating at that earlier point that's there. Here's some more excavations that are done there. And you can see squared off buildings, even a dug down basement, if you will. Platforms for food and dwellings, perhaps a bed here, who knows. But doors and areas that go along with it. When you look above it, it's real golden looking. Let me see if I can get down here a little bit more. And so at one portion they took a drone and just took it up above it here. And so now you can see there's 3 of these places, but then they know this whole area's got it. But it looks like I can see a big wall running out right here and an extra square right there. In fact, there's some shapes pointing out. That looks like a wall just poking up out of the ground. That may have been like what showed them up first. Looks like I can see a stele right here. So here's the Quonset hut that they check all the stuff out in. And here's one of the neat finds from it right here. See if I can blow it up and let you look at it here. I don't know, there's a good debate here on whether this is not a bird effigy or a lion effigy. And when you see the whole thing, you get the idea of almost that Whole-Fels lion of Cro-Magnon's way back when. But there's holes drilled all the way through it, and it's a jade type stone. And you can see that full body shape that goes there, the feet that come up. Yeah, and then it's got, I don't know, is it a bird with a big craw palette up under it? Doesn't look like it's an open mouth thing. It looks more like that it's supposed to have been playing portrayed parts of his arms, and it's got a belly on it. But fine stonework being used here and stuff. And here we go with the beads again, slowly down through them. And you can see all the different looks and appearances of them. And there's that pyramid stone again. And here again is a picture back from that, and you can see those terraced looking areas. And there ain't nothing like that over here, but here they are all through here, and here they are all through here. Through here. We're not looking the right way for the other part, but it looks like this does just go straight across there and up. And therefore you could come around and be on top of here. You could be on top of there. You could be on top of here, here, these other hills. What is around here? I mean, seriously. In fact, what's all around here? Well, they've dug up more stuff and the burials and stuff that go along with it. And look at all the different color of beads. Now, notice that they all have been worked, but they also all have a hole drilled through them. There's that same one with that pyramid stone type on it. It even has an extra little drilled spot in it, other than the one where it hangs. Pretty interesting. Now here's like a flint knife that they found. And we know that technology goes way back, but there's a whole lot of flinting going on. Let's look at one more set of pictures here as we end this. And you can see that now it has been excavated out, and it does have these pillar stones. And this one's been broken off, but they found it. It's sitting right over here beside it. You can't quite make it out in this picture. See if I can get in here on it. And ledges and an inset portion. Funny, that looks like the Rockwall, Texas type thing there on the wall. The whole wall's set up, but I won't go there with this. But straight walls, flat walls, insets in this too, right? That's advertisement. But here's another dwelling. It's not quite square, a little expanded, a little out-rounded, and they have stacks put up in here, an extra hearth type of area, or here. What goes on here? What goes on here? This is like the bedding areas and so on. What is this? Not sure. Not sure they're going to be able to figure it out at this point either. They're finding a lot of archaeological pieces and bits. We're fixing to look at a few of them here. But there's that broke off stele right there, and there's its top, the other part of it there. Now these two are stele, and these two are square made pillars. Yeah, there's a raised little dais area here too, and so on. So it's a good question, but they tell you here it goes past Gobekli Tepe. In fact, they talk about it going past Sumerian, Akkadian times, or any of that. You can see it in the words. That's that other area that we were looking at with the pillars in it before this is even excavated, looking on above. 11,300 years. 11,300 years. And I don't think they've fully excavated it yet at this point. So, I mean, what is it? Here's one of the lead archaeologists working on one of the stelae there. And again, all these necklaces with that pyramid shape and that one, but they say they found a bunch of them. So there's more artifacts than I can even show you here. In fact, let's look at this last one here, and they tell you that it's 12,000, not 11,300, 12. Well, there's probably a good banding of age here, but now you can see a lot more of it is excavated out, and there's this new pit over in the corner and so on. In fact, those aren't the places we were just looking at. It's extra. Wait, that might be the pillar room right there, and just not that. No, because they excavated it totally before they ever got to this. Seems like. Because here they are digging it down. There's that terracing thing again, and I wonder if you looked at that closely, if people would try to say that's natural. I mean, there's natural formations that make this type of thing, but a lot of other things. See here they mention Sumer, Akkad, Babel, Hittites, Assyrian, Urartu, Rome, Abasi, Bukulu, and Osmanli. All way predate this. Here we're looking at the funerary rites of these people. Let me zoom in on it a little bit. You can see they're buried on their side. Here we again buried on their left-hand side. And you can easily tell that's covered with red ochre. Yeah, I'm hoping that they can get some genetics out of this. Really am. Already have a good prediction though. So these are buried under the floors, individual different ones. And this is a look at all the artifacts that they show. And there's quite a few. But there's two of these lions or eagle-headed things. But then look at this snake down here that has the holes drilled in him. He's that stunted off snake with little dots on his back, just like at Gobekli Tepe. Here's a chip too, and I don't want to say what that looks like perhaps. But this, that's a horse. That's looking head on at a horse. That's not even like, oh, well it might, no, that's a, you can see this big blade here. Notice there's a lot of holes drilled in every single thing that we're looking at. And this eye shape with a hole in it. And all the extra color. Isn't that wicked? And you look at this schist type stuff here, and it's been drilled out. But if you look at this flat square that's over here, That's pretty different. In fact, you can kind of make out, hopefully you see it in the video, that you can see a white line going down the middle, and you can see a line going through here and a line going through here. I'm wondering if there used to be sticks that went through this that attached something like this onto it. Wonder if those holes lined up with these. And then that's the head. And or maybe they take those lion things and stick it on either side of the body thing that this is made out of. And there's that Master of Beast symbology all the way back then. I don't know. You just play with it. Try to figure out. Round discs, things with holes in it, section cut holes here, cylinders, and it's got a hole going all the way through it, but it barely meets. Seems like that's for a reason. Crystal arrowheads. There's a cow head that's there. Looks like this is a cow head. Again, a drilled thing that's shaped like a tooth or a fishing weight, if you will. And this, that's a deer. Shells that are not from there at all are all drilled out too, and that shows you something when somebody's this far away from a place that makes a shell like that, and they have them. In fact, like flutes, they've got all these holes drilled in here. Something that looks conspicuously like a scarab and some lines on it. Can't get a good look at it really at this point. But here we have a trapezoid shape. Very much teardrop, pear-shaped, a little larger. Very much affinity for this greenstone that's in here too. Looks like an old pipe made out of soapstone with a hole in through it. That's probably just a pendant that hangs down as the centerpiece on one of those necklaces. So let's see if there's another picture here. No. Anyhow, so what makes this very much unique here is that they don't have this T-pillared situation. In fact, the T-pillared situation is somewhat unique, but they found at least 8 sites of them and they're working on them. Again, Karahan Tepe could be older than, and they're professing it as. This also predates it, and it's not some T-pillars and something zodiacal and woo. It's a living space, and they're doing a lot of incredible craftsmanship. Looks like they're associating with horses, cows, deer, snake symbology that's there, perhaps that lion symbology that's up top. They have intricate drills already at this point, some 12,000 years ago now, predating by almost 1,000 years Gobekli Tepe. Yeah, it's kind of a neat standout, isn't it? So this Boncuklu Tara, these red ochre burials, circular pits and all of that, facing the left, red ochre. Now we're making attachments here. Now we're taking these people that we thought when I was a kid, they were cavemen and they were Cro-Magnon and all these things. Now we found out Cro-Magnon's DNA is still extant today, still here. Yeah, very well, readily. And so now they're called early European modern humans. Sites like this show some of those ancient things that you don't know what it's all about, with red ochre symbology and other things that start getting built up, and then you start to see them in a lot of civilizations everywhere. But that pendant symbology, they easily come with rebirth and so. The pyramid has been found in other places too. Just, well, call it a triangle if you will. Some of the other symbology there also. I wonder what they're going to be able to deduce out of this, and if they'll be able to get any genetic information at all. I sure hope so. Like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy. We'll get on to another story. about ancient archaeology in the past. Peace.